JMU takes another swing with the NCAA. It's Locked On Sunbelt.
You are Locked On Sunbelt, your daily podcast on the Sunbelt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome back to another edition of Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. I am your host, Dave Schultz. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. All right. Interesting day yesterday in the Sunbelt. Everyone kind of basking in the glow of JMU's win over Michigan State, but JMU finally takes another swing with the NCAA. So, and we'll also start to look ahead to week 11 in the Sunbelt. Starts early here in Lafayette as Southern Miss comes to take on the Ragin Cajuns. So let's set this all up, okay? Because we've been talking about it, and we had Shane Metlin on, the beat writer for JMU last week, and he made a good point. So we'll set it up. JMU, right? 2-year transition period from FCS to FBS. All right. The difference of what they've done compared to other schools, apparently, is they've played basically a full FBS schedule, whereas they're not playing half their games against FCS. There may be one, right? I think they had Bucknell earlier this year, or maybe even two, but some schools do it like half and half. I think Georgia Southern may have done it half and half. All right. And so there's a 2-year transition. All right. For the most part, I'm told by somebody who was told by somebody that, not in JMU's case, that they don't want schools going back and forth, right? They don't want you to transition to FBS, go get a bunch of FBS football players, and then go back down to FCS. Of course, there's ways to stop that, but apparently that's the thought, that there needs to be a 2-year transition. I'm not sure why otherwise, that you can support it or you've invested in it. I'm not really sure other than that. But nonetheless, there is. And JMU agreed to it. But based on their performance last year and where they are financially and their facilities, they asked the NCAA for a waiver over the spring, and they were denied. Okay. As far as JMU was concerned, case closed. That's it. Moving on. Okay. No one has changed the decision. This isn't, the NCAA was doing one thing and they've done another. This is what was happening at JMU for the last 2 years, and they knew it. So last year, when they couldn't play in the Sun Belt Championship game, they knew that going in, and boy, did they take it out on Coastal Carolina. They really did, right? And they consider themselves Sun Belt Eastern Division champions last year. All right. We had Kurt Signetti on. He's like, you're right, we did, right? And they took their frustrations out. I don't think Grayson McCall played in that ballgame, but it doesn't matter. JMU won that football game. And so this year they tried to remedy that with the waiver. Didn't happen. So everything that's been happening, and we've talked about this for the last month or so, because JMU is undefeated and they're on ESPN a lot, whether it's early on in the week or it's, ESPNU on a weekend, whatever the case is, everyone's picking up the ball for JMU to play in a bowl game. All right. I think it was, the first time we heard it on maybe Marshall ball game, it was Matt Berry and Roddy Jones doing it. Like, Matt Berry went on for like 5 to 10 minutes. And usually you're not going to get a better commercial than that. All right. Shane Metlin started asking questions. He's not running with the ball, but he's asking questions why. All right. I think he got a letter from Charlie Baker, the NCAA, and he's asking other people why. He asked the not the BCS, but the playoff, can JMU get in there if they're not, how do they get in there? And the NCAA, not the NCAA, the playoff committee said, up until yesterday, by the way, that until they're eligible, we're not going to count them, right? And it's so ridiculous, right? Jalen Green leads the nation in sacks, but he's not listed on the stat sheet on ncaa.org or wherever you find that stuff because they're not full FBS. But that's just stupid, right? That's even worse than, well, you won the championship, but someone got an improper benefit, so we're taking away the championships. Like Louisville's, what's that, 2013 NCAA basketball championship? We know they won. Just because you say they didn't doesn't matter, doesn't change the fact that they won, right? So Jalen Green has the 15.5 sacks. He leads the nation in sacks. Too bad, So that's ridiculous. So now all of this sort of changed on Tuesday when JMU officially wrote Jerry Moorhead, chair of the NCAA Division I Board of Directors. All right, we're going to try and read this for you. Maybe just let's read it for you. All right, you can find it online, but I'm going to read the letter. In April 2023, James Madison sought a waiver to reduce our FCS to FBS 2-year transition period to 1 year. Much has transpired and changed in our situation and in the Division I landscape since our waiver was denied. Accordingly, JMU respectfully requests relief of NCAA legislation to allow our football program to be fully eligible for bowl consideration during the 2023 season. Our university has embarked on a transition in ways no other institution has since the transition rules changed 23 years ago, and our student athletes have achieved an astonishing, unprecedented level of success during this period. Relief that allows our student athletes to participate in a bowl game as their play has earned is warranted. One of the rationales offered for denial for our previous waiver centered around the Transformation Committee's ongoing work in establishing new FBS membership requirements. The work of that committee has since been completed, and in August, the membership adopted new FBS membership requirements that will go into effect in August of 2027. Fortunately, due to the diligence and planning of our institution, we're able to confirm that we are meeting the updated requirements now. We have met full FBS membership requirements in both years of our transition and will continue to meet them in the future. What JMU is not going to do, by the way, I think that fee has gone from not kidding, $5,000 to $5 million, but that's a different story. Our football program has also achieved unprecedented success competing against other FBS institutions. Below is a short list of achievements for our program during the 2023 season. We have a 9-0 record with 8 victories coming against FBS competition. We are one of 7 undefeated programs in FBS. We're currently ranked 21st in the country in the AP and coaches polls. We are a top-ranked group of 5 program in the country in various metrics such as SP+, Massey Composite, Warren Nolan, and ESPN Power Rankings. If we're allowed to compete in the postseason without restriction, we would be in the running for a prestigious New Year's 6-day bowl game. We have a 15-3 record against FBS competition in the past 2 years, including a current 12-game winning streak. We're the only program to be ranked in the AP poll during each of the first 2 years of transition while competing against full FBS schedules. We lead the FBS in multiple team and individual statistic categories, including rushing yards allowed, sacks, and tackles for loss. We're almost done. Second page. We've won every major university-wide academic award in the Sun Belt Conference since joining last year, demonstrating that our athletic success coincides with a strong emphasis on academic achievement. We're going to skip to the end. In closing, JMU presents a unique set of factors in making this request for relief. No other school has gone above and beyond the transition requirements in all the ways we have. The request is specific, unique, and consistent with principles of student-athletes' welfare espoused by the NCAA. In this evolving landscape, which includes the transfer portal and NIL opportunities, our football program has displayed extraordinary grit and resilience in maintaining roster continuity and performing at an extremely high level. Our student-athletes have done everything the right way, and they view the postseason prohibition in this instance as an inexplicable punishment in light of the NCAA's stated priorities. As many commentators have noted, this is an opportunity for the NCAA to do the right thing for our student-athletes and recognize their exceptional efforts on and off the field. Signed by Meredith Herod, Rector, James Madison University, Jonathan Alger, President, James Madison University, and Jeffrey Bourne, Director of Athletics. Okay, so a couple things in there. And it is interesting. We're going to go a little bit long in this first segment. It is interesting because there are instances where JMU did not put the student-athletes up first. Apparently, in their previous conference, other teams had left or were deciding to leave, right, like the next year, and they voted against them being able to play in postseason play. So that's not exactly putting the student-athletes first, all right? It's not their student-athletes, but they're prohibiting other student-athletes. So that's not real kosher, all right? I do not understand why other teams in the Sun Belt outside of, teams in the East who would be out of the Sun Belt Championship game care all that much, right? Like Ragin' Cajuns fans. Like, what are they doing? No, stand in line like everybody else. Well, if this was Louisiana, they'd be an outcry for that. No. We're better than everybody else. You got to let us play. So I don't understand the whole stand in line. It's a stupid rule. If you can meet some criteria, you should be able to play in the Sun Belt Championship game and go bowling. Okay. Again, if you're worried about teams going back and forth, and JMU's not going to, obviously, first of all, you have to be FBS for a decade, okay? And if you get screwed and you're financially hurt, that's too bad for you. But if for whatever reason you go back to FCS, we don't want to ever hear from you again. It is a permanent decision. That's it. You get one shot. Well, we weren't ready at the time. A bad leadership. Too bad. That's not difficult to figure out. Once you go to FBS, you're there permanently. Or if you do go backwards, you're never coming back. Although I guess I didn't use the word permanently correctly. So we'll see what happens. I have a feeling, I have a sneaking suspicion that it's going to get, there's going to be peer pressure. They're going to do it. Although people did point out that other schools are going to back sue the NCAA for loss of revenue. Okay. Whatever the case may be. That would be interesting because they're making an exception in this case. We'll see if the NCAA, craters to peer pressure. They kind of did with Tez Walker. Well, that was lawsuit pressure with the NCAA in North Carolina, right? It's going to be interesting moving forward. All right. They got UConn, and that's got letdown game written all over it, except now it doesn't, because now everybody's going to be paying attention. And they're going to cover in a big way in that one. All right. So let's take a timeout. We'll start to preview. I guess we just did week 11, but that's where we are in the JMU saga with the NCAA. They've sent a letter to the board of directors. It is, technically November 8th, and, the end of the season, regular season, is the 25th. So they really have about, I would say, and you're going to want to make a decision before Thanksgiving. You really have about, I'd say about a week. I bet you we find out a decision before next week's game. All right. That's my thing. They're not going to make a decision like the day before Thanksgiving. And, JMU can, clinch sooner than later. And they're going to want as much time to promote that they're hosting a ball game, because they would host, right? They beat Troy, so they would host the Sun Belt Championship game. And the more time you have to prepare, the better off it'll be. All right, let's take a timeout. A little bit late here, a little bit long in the first segment, but that's the big news in the Sun Belt is JMU picking up their own ball and running with it, where everybody else was doing it. Those that what the JMU sound off got, again, the Virginia AG on to discuss it. I don't think he's done anything about it, but it's pretty cool that you get that kind of big-time politician to join the sports blog. I think he is a JMU grad. I think that's what I heard. All right, let us take a time out. Let me tell you about PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. We are the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS. It's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more than or less than the 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. PrizePicks is the most fun I've had, winning up to 25 times my money this football season. And now I can play during basketball season too. You just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projected stats, and place your entry. With basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League, a league created specifically for combo projections that includes 2 or more players from different sports or leagues. For example, LeBron James plus Travis Kelce is a 10.5 combo of 3-pointers made plus receptions, kind of like Super Bowl picks. PrizePicks offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday, speaking of LeBron James, each Tuesday. PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value. PrizePicks now offers Apple Pay for quick and easy deposits into your account this football season. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege and use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege and use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Let's start to look ahead to Week 11. We'll do a little bit more with this Louisiana Southern Miss ball game tomorrow. Louisiana playing Chandler Fields. They are a 10-point favorite. Not so sure about that. Southern Miss coming off their first win in the Sun Belt. And if you were listening to the Twitter Spaces, we need to slow last night for the Sun Belt Friday night on a Wednesday night that was on a Tuesday night. And yes, my head hurts because of that. But someone thinks Southern Miss is playing their best football of the season. And I'm thrilled for the Fighting Will Halls to finally get that first Sun Belt victory, but slow the roll a little bit, all right? The offense has come around, that's for sure. More consistency in the offense. So since the head coach fired the offensive coordinator, and that, of course, is Will Hall stepping down, interestingly enough, the offensive line coach is coming up with a game plan, and the quarterback's coach is calling the plays during the game. Interesting. So a team effort, so to speak. And they scored 38 and 24. But before we get all huffy-puffy about Southern Miss, and I'm not saying Southern Miss can't win this football game. I would be careful if I was the Cajuns, okay? Nothing would make Southern Miss's year more as a point that they're in 2-7 and 1-5 than taking down the Louisiana Ragin Cajuns. I guess Southern Miss hasn't lost to the Cajuns in like a decade, technically. All right? They lost. They beat them last year in Hattiesburg, and before that, off the top of my head, I believe the New Orleans Bowl would have been the last matchup. Nicky Mullins leading the Golden Eagles to a victory over Jennings and company. So, okay. However, let's not go crazy on how well Southern Miss is playing. All right, they turned a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter against App State to a 10-point loss. They allowed 20 points in the fourth quarter. All right, that's at App State. All right, okay. And then they beat ULM 24-7, scoring 17 points in the first quarter. All right, so they've given up 20 to App in the fourth. That's not playing great. And, you know, although they put a couple long drives together, they didn't score a whole lot of points against the worst team in the Sun Belt, ULM. So, whereas I do think Southern Miss could win this football game, and they'll probably cover the 10-point spread. I mean, people were talking about Southern Miss blowing out the Cajuns. If Southern Miss blows out the Cajuns in this ball game, shame on the Cajuns. I don't care if it's the 10th string quarterback. You can't get blown out by Southern Miss. You may lose because you're down to your third string quarterback, and if Chandler Fields gets hurt, good luck. But I still think the Cajuns win this game. I do think it's closer than the 10-point spread. Don't be losing by 3 scores to Southern Miss. That's not. Southern Miss doesn't beat anybody by 3 scores. Like, the only team they beat by 3 scores are ULM and Alcorn State, and those are their only 2 wins, okay? The Cajuns have the talent, and hopefully, you know, they do some, you know, soul searching, because apparently, you know, some veterans on the team were questioning the effort on what happened against Arkansas State, all right? Let's move on. Speaking of Arkansas State, they hit the road, and they're going to take on South Alabama. That's Saturday at 4 p.m. Craig Stevenson, AL.com, we're reporting Carter Bradley is a game-time decision. That sounds like he ain't playing to me. All right. If we're, you know, 2 weeks since the injury, or at least, yeah, more than a week, about 10 days since the injury that he suffered against Troy, but 10 days since he suffered the injury against Troy, and we're still a game-time decision for later on in the week, I would tend to think Gio Lopez, who played okay against Troy, a couple of questionable decisions. And again, if you're grading him on a curve, you know, first start on the road, freshman, Troy's defense, then yeah, he played up pretty okay. Still made some questionable decisions, rolling one way and throwing back across his body. Not great. I thought the big throw to Pritchett down the field was, you know, kind of thrown up for grabs. It kind of worked, but, kind of a wing and a prayer. So we'll see. And Arkansas State is going to be ready for a bowl berth. South Alabama, by the way, they need to win 2 out of their last 3. If South Alabama doesn't go bowling this year, they're going to be up there as some of the most disappointing team in the country. They got Arkansas State and Marshall, and then they're at Texas State. That Texas State game was kind of lurking from the beginning of the season to now. That's going to be tough. They'll probably beat Marshall, but you better beat Arkansas State if you're going to go bowling, all right? And South Alabama is an 11.5-point favorite. I'm not sure about that one. I don't think that's going to happen. All right, I think Arkansas State can win this football game. I'll pick South Alabama, but I think I'd be surprised if Arkansas State does not cover this spread. That's a huge spread, and one, as we've said before, South Alabama doesn't really deserve. As of right now, it doesn't appear to be the case that they deserve that spread. All right, let's do one more here quickly before we take a break. You do have Old Dominion taking on Liberty. Apparently, Liberty has one of the softest schedules going. They got a 13.5-point spread. And Old Dominion is tough. Old Dominion does not get blown out, and Liberty puts up a bunch of points, right? They hammer Jacksonville State. That's a big spread. They embarrassed Louisiana Tech. All right. They beat Western Kentucky by double digits. All right. They hammered FIU. They hammered Buffalo. ODU makes it tough because they just don't get it. In fact, we called the JMU win, but the Old Dominion cover, right? And Old Dominion just doesn't lose by a lot, right? They beat UL by 7. They lost by 3. They won by 1. They lost by 6. They won by 4. They won by 7. They lost by 3. They lost by 4. All right. The question, for ODU is it's not how Liberty is going to defend ODU. It's how ODU can defend Liberty. I kind of like Liberty in this one. All right. It's 13.5. I'm going to take Liberty in that one. It's a good test for Old Dominion on the road. And they have to be one of the biggest surprises. I'm pretty sure their over-under was like 1.5, 2 wins. They need this one probably to get into a bowl game. They're at Georgia Southern and home versus Georgia State. So they got to win 2 of their last 3 to become bowl eligible. And that would be a huge season for Ricky Ronnie and company. All right, let's take a timeout. And this is going to be a long episode. When we come back, we'll wrap up the early Week 11 preview of the Sun Belt. Time to tell you about FanDuel. Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's number one sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right. So also in terms of FanDuel, college basketball is difficult. Like Tennessee had like a 35.5-point spread last night against Florida A&M, and they won, but not by 35.5. Some of these lines in college basketball are tough, and the NBA is tough as well. I was looking at the Heat last night for tonight's game. Watch that line. That's interesting. They haven't really beaten anyone by a whole lot, and they're going on the road. They're favored by 1.5. That's interesting. All right. Let's continue the quick, not so quick, Week 11 preview. Here's James Madison, a huge line over UConn, 25.5. Excuse me. Jim Mora Jr. did one of the better coaching jobs in America last year. UConn has reverted back to form. They lost to Tennessee 59-3. Boston College beat them by 7. South Florida by 3. So they've played some close ball games. They beat Rice as their only win. Duke embarrassed them. Georgia State embarrassed them. They played tough against NC State. Here's the thing, though. James Madison going to try and run up the score, and Curt Cignetti doesn't care. It's only on ESPN Plus, but James Madison is going to make sure that the NCAA knows that they should be playing a bowl, should be eligible for a bowl game. We'll see if UConn can slow them down. If Jordan McLeod plays the way Jordan McLeod has been playing, this game's got 40-10, 45-10 written all over it. I would go with James Madison in this one. I would be shocked if UConn, puts up a lot of points here. They used to do these head-to-head matchups about the defense, and they're not doing it anymore. Let's see here. Rosa for UConn, 84 yards carrying. He leads the team in carries, and he's averaging, let's see here. He's averaging, hold on quickly, 4.8 yards a carry. All right. He's got 2 touchdowns on the ground. JMU doesn't give up anything rushing. Good luck to UConn rushing the football. All right. Good luck to UConn rushing the football. I don't think that game's going to be particularly close. That JMU is now going to take that frustration out on everybody that they can. All right. Georgia State taking on App State. This is a big ball game. I'm going to have to wait to figure out who's going to win this one. This is Georgia State by 2. They haven't played well the last couple of weeks at all, for that fact of the matter. App State's got, I think, a couple of wins in a row. Sean Clark fighting for his job. All right. I'm going to take my time with that one. Joey Aguilar's had quite the season, though. 23 touchdowns and only 6 interceptions. All right. Troy at Monroe. This will also be ugly. Has the idea of a letdown. Monroe is not an easy place to play. Monroe's playing with pride. 21.5 on the road is a lot, but this also has like 35, 7 written all over it, right? Maybe even more. All right. Coastal Carolina hosting Texas State. Texas State favored on the road. Who is playing quarterback? Is it for Coastal Carolina? Is it Jarrett Guest? Is it Ethan Vasco? The big question here is, does Texas State have a letdown? All right. Does Texas State have a letdown? Or have they learned the lessons, right? They're coming off that big win against Miss, playing the Cajuns, and they couldn't finish off the Cajuns. Coastal Carolina has been playing well, right? They were, again, 1-2 in the Sun Belt. Now they're 4-2, and right now they're second in the East, looking to play in the Sun Belt Championship game. So a lot riding on this one. It's an interesting line, though. Texas State -1 on the road. And then Georgia Southern has struggled. Did not play well last week at all against Texas State. Marshall heading in the wrong direction. 4-5. Marshall needs to win 2 out of their last 3. This is 2.5 Georgia Southern. Interesting. Marshall's lost 5 in a row, and I think they've lost their way for this year. We'll see if Charles Huff and company can figure things out. That game is on NFL Network. All right. Thanks for hanging with us. A little bit of a long episode talking about JMU taking another swing with the NCAA. I thought it was important to talk about that. Again, we're going to find out. We're going to find out in a week. They're going to announce before next week's ball game. All right, because then everybody else is on vacation. Everyone goes away for a week, I'm sure, for Thanksgiving. Right. So if they're going to be eligible, we're going to find out. I would presume in a week. It doesn't take a whole lot to make a decision. Get on a Zoom call. Here's the letter. What do you guys think? Get back to us in a couple of days. Take the weekend. Think about the ramifications. Think about the precedent we're setting. And, let's come to a conclusion, because we need to make one as quickly as possible. That's, of course, not the NCAA's way, but in this case, they are a little bit pressed for time. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in to Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. We'll be back again tomorrow with a little bit more of a full preview of Southern Miss and the Cajuns as they're playing Thursday night at Cajun Field. We'll, of course, be there to cover the ball game. You've been listening and watching to Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. I'm your host, Dave Schultz. Have a great day, everybody. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.